E. E. Cummings, born Edward Estlin Cummings, was born on October 14th, 1894.
It's a boy!
Hey, my boy. I'm E. E. Cummings.
E. E. Cummings is famous for his unique poetic style, his relatively visual style of poetry, and his great taste in hats.
Hey, you're pretty unique. Oh, thank you. I use it in my poetry.
But how did the man behind the hat get to become one of the greatest poets of all time? From the time he was a child, Cummings wanted to be a poet. He explored all types of poetry by writing daily from ages 8 to 22. He later graduated from Harvard, where he acquired a love for modern poetry. After graduating Harvard, he enlisted in the Northern Harz Ambulance Corps. During this time, he fell in love with the city of Paris and vowed to return throughout his life.
Bonjour, j'adore Paris.
On September 21st, 1917, he was arrested by the French military on suspicion of espionage. He spent 3.5 months in a detention camp.
I love Paris. Hey, you!
Yeah.
American? You look like a spy to me. Spy. Hey!
This experience was the basis of his novel, The Enormous Room. During a trip to the Soviet Union, he developed a strong interest in politics. He became a Republican and was a strong supporter of Joseph McCarthy.
Where am I? You're in Soviet Russia. Politics are awesome. Okay.
After his father's untimely death, Cummings' artistic style completely changed. He changed his focus to more important aspects of life, such as love and memory.
My father died. Love and memories.
Cummings was married twice. His marriages were both extremely brief. His first wife, Elaine Orr, gave birth to his only child, Nancy Cummings. After the divorce, Cummings was given custody of Nancy for 3 months each year. His second marriage, to Anne Barton, lasted 3 years. After his second marriage, he left Marion Morehouse. The two were never legally married, but Marion lived with him under the common law marriage. In 1952, Harvard awarded Cummings a seat as a guest professor.
Hey, thanks for my seat. Yeah.
For his last 10 years, he traveled the world lecturing about poetry. On September 3rd, 1962, Cummings died of a stroke. And was buried next to Marion in Boston, Massachusetts. He was 67.
Hello, and welcome to a very special edition of Jeff's Basement. Today, I'll be your host, Doug. And we have a very special guest who does some very interesting things and writes some very special poetry. And put your hands together for Mr. E. E. Cummings. Woo! Well, actually, I'm not the E. E. Cummings. E. Cummings died a long time ago. I'm just an actor. What? But I could have sworn that you were... Yes. At times, I even fool myself. Well, not back in the character. Yeah, of course, of course. Are you going to interview me? Yes, of course, that's what we do on Jeff's Basement! It's our audience. So, we just learned about the details of your life. Could you tell us about some of the influences on your poetic genius? So, my love for poetry really started in, Harvard, but then it also greatly excelled in my time spent in Paris. So did you meet Gertrude Stein while you were in Paris? Oh yes, I did. She was one of my primary influences on some of the new modernist styles of poetry. This is Paris. Also exposed me to imagist and surrealist styles. How did the death of your father affect the evolution of your poetry? Well, the death of my father, it allowed for me to sober up, and I really began to focus on the more important things of my life.
You say it helps you focus on important things, but what type of important things do you mean?
It mainly helped me focus on love and memories.
So now that we've got that heavy stuff out of the way, would you be so kind as to read a poem for us today?
Oh my goodness, I would be happy to, but I would just need a laptop. Holy days. Injustice by me. Injustice.
Just spring, when the world is mud luscious, the little lame balloon man whistles far and wee, and Eddie and Bill come running from marbles and piracies, and it's spring. When the world is puddle wonderful, the queer old balloon man whistles far and wee, and Betty and Isabel come dancing from hopscotch and jump rope, and it's spring, and the goat-footed balloon man whistles far and wee.
So now let's hear some Cummings criticism from our gracious audience member.
My feelings about E.E. Cummings are kind of wishy-washy. It's kind of like a popsicle in winter. You like the taste, but it's already cold out. Something that I really like about E.E. Cummings is, from the first poem to the second poem that we heard, he really evolved his style. On a negative note, his style is so selfish and self-indulgent.
Wow.
On another negative note, the crazy structure of his words really just take away the meaning of all of the poems. But overall, the visual composition of his poetry really helps me to understand the whole theme of the poem.
So what were the feelings and thoughts going through your mind when you wrote that poem? Well, basically, I was just trying to portray a springtime and, the happy feelings of the spring, and that's what I was going for with
Yeah, I got that vibe. That was good.
That's great. That's really what I was going for, and then also just try to bring back the youth and, my childhood memories, really.
So to you, what does spring symbolize?
The spring symbolizes the season of creation.
Yeah, that was good. Can you read us another poem by any chance? Do you have time?
Nah, I gotta go.
Many of his poems are modern sonnets. Many of his works deal with love, nature, and the relationship between an individual and society. His work is often satirical. His time in Paris drastically influenced E.E. Cummings' style. He picked up on modernist ideas from Gertrude Stein. In later visits, E.E. Cummings was also exposed to surrealism and imagist ideas. All of these styles he experimented with in his own poetry. Some of his poetry is free verse, but the majority of his work is in a sonnet structure. He uniquely structures his poems on the page by fragmenting words, sounds, and punctuation across the page. This generally makes it difficult to understand until read aloud. Cummings believed in painting a picture through his poems.
Next to, of course, God, America, I love you, land of the pilgrims, and so forth. Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early, my country 'tis of centuries come and go, and are no more. What of it? We should worry in every language, even deaf and dumb. Thy sons acclaim your glorious name, by gory, by jingo, by gee, by gosh, by gum. Why talk of beauty? What could be more beautiful than these heroic happy dead, who rushed like lions to the roaring slaughter? They did not stop to think, they died instead. Then shall the voice of liberty be mute? He spoke, and drank rapidly a glass of water. By E.E. Cummings. In Next to, of course, God, America, I, the speaker of the poem is not sharing his own views. Rather, he is retelling common patriotic accounts and putting his own personal spin on it. The first few lines serve the purpose of establishing a patriotic love of America, using famous patriotic lines such as, "Oh say can you see by the dawn's early," the first part of the American national anthem. Certain phrases in the poem, such as "what of it," show that the speaker does not necessarily agree with the patriotic quotes. Later, he links the patriot quotes to soldiers and war, with phrases such as, "Thy sons acclaim your glorious name by gory," and "Why talk of beauty? What could be more beautiful than these heroic happy dead?" Both lines, dripping with sarcasm, deal with soldiers sent off to war, dying in the name of their country. The speaker compares the soldiers to lions to illustrate bravery, though then mentions the foolishness of it all with, "They did not stop to think, they all died instead." In the poem, Cummings, addressing one of his more serious topics, expresses his displeasure with war and death for the sake of patriotism. A leaf falls.
Loneliness.
This poem is a perfect example of Cummings' visual style of poetry. The downward spiral of letters represents the falling leaf. The words "a leaf falls" are in parentheses, giving a physical representation, the loneliness of a falling leaf, for the poem's true theme of human loneliness, which is the word outside the parentheses.
Love screen protectors and ice cream. You know, it's funny because Doug's probably gonna awkwardly put this in at the end. He's sitting here eating ice cream.
I'll just have the credits roll behind you.
Alright, that sounds good.
Well, you have the green screen, you can probably do that.
What if your credits though? It's just gonna be like,
Our names.
yeah, and then
It'd be like awkward.
good enough.
I'm gonna have Doug and Mac like up top, and then Jeff's just gonna get cut off by your head.
Alright.
Why?
And Greg will just be like, no.
We won't put Greg in the group. We should tell this is Clay. Yeah, he didn't. We have no. He wasn't in our group.